Good morning. Welcome to Shields and Arrows, where we defend the faith, the family, and the fellowship. How'd you like the new intro music? I'll be honest, we have an identity crisis when it comes to our music. We had the original one that was just to get us by. Then I had one I really liked, but then I wasn't able to get the license renewed because they were in Japan. And anyways, now we're just throwing stuff at the wall to see if it sticks. But hey, did you like it? Let me know. If not, then maybe I'll change it. We'll see how this thing goes. I am just winging it so far. But hey, it seems to be working because you have tuned in, you've taken the time to watch, you care about the things that we are discussing, whether it is matters of theology, which is our primary goal, but sometimes there are things that go on in the world that we got to stop and we got to talk about. We're going to do a little bit of that today when it comes to this hearing that was on Capitol Hill with the director of the Secret Service and the non-answers that she gave the whole time. And we're going to just take that example and discuss that for a little bit, and then we're going to turn it into a theological discussion to paint a picture of the current state of our churches, our pastors, our theological experts, so-called, in the seminaries and the book publishers. We're going to talk about all that and why it is the case that you have the right to ask questions, okay? So thank you all so much for joining us. And let's talk about this. But first, let's go ahead and jump on here and say hi to everybody. Appreciate all of you taking the time to jump on and to support this ministry. Thank you all for joining us, whether it is on YouTube or it is on Worshipify. We greatly appreciate all of you. Okay, now, let's talk about the hearing that was on Capitol Hill yesterday. The director of the Secret Service was brought on Capitol Hill. Here is the Daily Wire picture here for you. Kimberly Cheadle, she testified before Congress, and basically it was a whole bunch of nothing. Both Republicans and Democrats grilled her quite severely on a lot of things. And if you are a conspiracy theorist, and if you still believe that the Kennedy assassination was an undercover operation by the CIA, this is only going to fuel the flames because she had very few answers to anything. Also, wouldn't even confirm that there was just a single gunman. So basically, here's what I'm going to tell you. The Secret Service has no real credibility at this point. What a shame. You would hope that the agency responsible for protecting politicians, leaders such as that would have a little bit of credibility left, and it seems like they have gone down the same pathway as the FBI and the CIA and you name it. They have become nothing but hollowed out shadows of their former selves, and they are not going to really take responsibility for this, even though this Director Cheadle said that she was the one that is taking responsibility for it. She's not stepping down. She's not giving us answers. And as we talked about in an episode a while back, this is the surefire way to have conspiracy theories flourish. If you are not going to give us answers, you're not going to explain what exactly happened. The truth is, she kept saying that all this is under investigation still. They're still trying to get all the details. Isn't paperwork and record keeping kind of a big deal? For example, the ATF makes a big deal about record keeping and making sure that all the details are aligned perfectly. And that is the requirements they place upon people that have FFLs and other matters of firearms or tobacco, explosive things like that. But apparently the Secret Service is not expected to have all their ducks in a row when it comes to paperwork and details. All of this information, they have it, they know it, they know who was posted where. At least I'm assuming that. Surely they're not that incompetent. I am much more likely to believe in this case they are just not telling us the whole story. Clearly, they would have had the plans in place, who was going to be stationed where, who was going to be posted in what position, and they should be able to relay all that information to us right now. So if you want to regain any credibility, Secret Service, Director Cheadle, you got to start telling us the facts. You got to start being honest and letting us know what is going on. And another thing that we don't know what is going on is what happens to Joe Biden. Like, where is he? why have we not heard from him personally? Why has he not made a public appearance? We know that he had a phone call with Kamala Harris, but that was kind of weird. I don't know if you saw that clip or not. Some people think that it was a recording. Kamala Harris almost messed up and said it was a recording in her own words. It's a whole strange situation. A lot of weird things are going on. Who is in charge? And what is going on with my internet service? I can see the on-air sign flashing once again. We are going to get there, I promise you. But right now, it seems like we are just continuing to deal with all sorts of fun technological difficulties. One week, everything works great. Other weeks, it's not. Are they sending missiles to take out the satellites for Starlink? I don't know what's going on. Elon Musk, I need your help here, okay? But hopefully this is still going to go through after a little bit of time. I'm hoping, as I'm looking at my stream, and poor, pitiful me. But hopefully you will bear with me as I continue to talk, watching the monitoring our connection here. Hopefully things will reconnect here momentarily, and you'll be able to follow along with me. But we'll see. If I may, let's interrupt our normal scheduled broadcasting for a quick commercial break. And that commercial break is, if you will go over to Worshipify, I want to show you a couple things that we have going on right over here. So over here on Worshipify, if you will see, we've got a number of new series that we are doing right now. If you go over to Worshipify and you scroll down to See Our Teachers, you've got Mark Baze Ministries right down here. And I got to talk to Nathan about getting our pictures fixed. For whatever reason, we don't have our pictures working properly on here for our new series, but we did wrap up Jonah. All 7 of those sessions are uploaded and available for you. And then we also have our Misapplied series, Questioning Doctrine Derived from Bible Stories. We just wrapped up our 8th sermon on that series. We are going to be wrapping that up in the next couple of weeks. I've got 2 more sermons left, so that'll be a 10-part series for you. I don't have those uploaded for you yet, or the latest one, but we most recently did a sermon on the 10 Commandments, and I think there's definitely a lot of confusion regarding the doctrine surrounding the 10 Commandments and their relevancy today, so stay tuned for that. We'll have that uploaded for you to where you'll be able to view it, you'll be able to watch it, hopefully very soon. Now, also, we are doing our Last Days series, and we have session number 3. We're going to be getting that uploaded for you as well. But our first one, we introduced you to eschatology. Our second one, we did tribulation to triumph, looking at the key components, the key aspects of the last days. And the third session is the introduction to the various views. It's called the doctrinal debate, so the different positions on the order of events regarding the tribulation and the kingdom. Are those to be interpreted literally? Are those to be interpreted figuratively? And we are going to go through all of that in detail. We are going to, in our next session, break down probably post-millennialism and address the details that surround it, because there is a lot of different intricacies to it. And so that is going to be on the list as we go forward here. Once again, I'm looking at our internet, trying to hopefully keep it going the best that we can. It seems to want to be struggling, but I hope that you can all bear with me today, and that I am coming through loud and clear for you at the moment. So, now that we seem to have been reconnected and we are back on schedule here, there's just so much going on, and it seems like you are just not being told the whole story. Whether it is the case with the Secret Service debacle and the lack of answers from the director, also all the things surrounding Joe Biden, and where is he? Why is he not giving us a press conference? He's still apparently at his home in Delaware. He's not even in the White House at this point. And they really want to get mad at us. By they, I mean the institutions, the agencies, the deep state, whatever terminology you want to use. They want to get so mad at us and accuse us of being conspiracy theorists. But the truth is, they have lost any justified reason for being frustrated at our lack of trust because they have time and time again shown that they cannot be trusted. They will hide information from us. They will not tell us the whole story. So therefore, I want you to know that you have every right to be very skeptical of what you're being told by these agencies. The days of the conspiracy theorist being a crazed, fringed person that's just not the truth. We are seeing time and again. Vivek Ramaswamy, you may recall, he actually called that Joe Biden was not going to be the candidate for the Democratic Party almost a year ago when the debates for the Republican nominee was still going on. And he was kind of laughed at by the mainstream media and whatnot, and yet now he's been proven to be right. So a conspiracy theory is nothing more than a fact that is going to be revealed in just a few months. And therefore, when it comes to this issue of Joe Biden and the whole democratic process that has been thrown out the window, the idea that you are being told the truth at all at this point is really just absurd. And that's what you have to realize is there were people that knew that Joe Biden was not mentally fit going all the way back, and the media now does not get to pretend like they have credibility because they've acknowledged it after the fact. All these different news media places like CNN, MSNBC, you name it, they are going to pretend as if they now are being honest and open with you, okay? Just keep this in mind. They were not being honest and open with you back in 2022 when Joe Biden was president. And that also means they're not being honest and open with you now. Now, as we go forward and we discuss the matter of Kamala Harris, we talked about this yesterday. I know that there is some still speculation with some people here on who's going to be the nominee. I may have misspoke yesterday, and I think I said that the Obamas had endorsed Kamala Harris. I don't think they've actually endorsed her yet, but don't take that as a sign that she's not going to be the nominee. It seems like all the delegates are falling in line to support her. She's going to be the one that they're going to push. I just do not see any reason to suspect that anybody but Kamala Harris is going to be the nominee. A lot of things could happen, but that's the way things are trending right now. And just because Obama has not endorsed her yet, I'll remind you, Obama took a long time to endorse Joe Biden. He waited and until it was clear that Joe Biden was the front runner after all the Democratic Party turned on Bernie Sanders. And then Obama came out, gave his public address, and mentioned that Joe Biden was going to receive his endorsement. So I wouldn't read too much into that. I absolutely think that it is going to be Kamala Harris. We're going to see who is going to be her running mate. That is my prediction. Obviously, a number of things could happen between now and then. Let's now that I've talked about this and I've ranted about this matter of the attempted Trump assassination and Joe Biden's mysterious dropping out of the race and the questions surrounding the Secret Service and losing all credibility. Let's go ahead and jump over to theology. I've spent a lot of time talking about politics, a lot last week, a lot yesterday. Let's discuss this matter of theology for a moment. Because what I see is there is so much correlation between what you see in the establishment political realm and the establishment theological realm. There have been for so long institutions that had the authority, right? You had to appeal to them, and they may have had in the past some degree of credibility. But if we consider the current state, and I wouldn't even say the current state because I think theology as it has been quite confused for a long time. But I will say, in modern times, though, this has become much more problematic. In the days of when Catholicism was really at the forefront, You can think of the Holy Roman Empire, but you don't have to go back necessarily to Constantine or Charlemagne. You can go back to even the 1700s. You had the Roman Empire, but you also had the Church of England, some of the Protestant type movements going on. There was a doctrinal consistency somewhat to the principles of those churches and the Roman Empire, or the Catholic, the Holy Roman Empire. And you had the similarities of you had the ordinances in place, the Eucharist view of the Lord's Supper. You had the principles of infant baptism. And it was much more consistent, okay? We consider the doctrinal basis of Catholicism, but also Church of England, and even Eastern Orthodoxy, Presbyterians, some of the Congregationalists. Their theology was much more Petrine, based upon Peter being their apostle, because you did have the implementation, the necessity of baptism, Lord's Supper, all of those matters. And you had still kind of this principle of a somewhat universal church. And there was more doctrinal consistency. I'm not saying that doctrine was correct. Obviously, I don't agree with Catholic doctrine. I don't agree with Anglican doctrine or Presbyterian doctrine. But there was doctrinal consistency. That's why I have some respect. If we have our friend on, Kieran from Montreal, I would commend the Anglican Church on at least being doctrinally consistent, even if I don't agree with them. And doctrinally consistent for the most part anyways. What I have seen is when you had Martin Luther to a degree, but then Martin Luther was still pretty Catholic, but as you progressed and you eventually got to the movement of Sola Scriptura, and then you got to the strong movements of salvation by faith alone, which Luther kind of wanted to claim that, but also he could not unhook the Catholic wagon in a lot of ways. I have seen all the more increase in incoherent theology. And as I see the standard evangelical approach, whether it is the Southern Baptist, but also independent Baptists that don't. The independent Baptists are probably going to be dispensational for the most part, but they're going to hold to probably some kind of Acts 2 dispensational view. Or it's the Church of Christ or Assembly of God, you name it. The issue is there is a doctrinal inconsistency that is present, and you have been expected to just accept the premises of the different denominations, conventions, confessions of faith. You have it. And what's amazing to me is these theologians, whether it is the seminary professors, the pastors of the churches, I see some similarities with them and the agencies, the institutions that run our government. If you consider how they view themselves, they expect you to give them all respect. They think they are due that. They think that they should not be questioned, and that they do have some inherent authority over you. Okay? That is how they view themselves, whether we're talking about politics now or we're talking about theologians. And that they have this inherent authority, and this means that you cannot call them into question and that you must believe everything they tell you. If you, for example, I was talking to my good friend Evan, who's a member of my church, excellent Bible teacher. He's one of our Sunday school teachers for our older men's class, mature men's class. We were talking about the Lord's Prayer, right? The Lord's Prayer in the Sermon on the Mount. And it's amazing how every Southern Baptist will, on one hand, say salvation by grace through faith, but then at the other side of their mouth, they will say the Lord's Prayer. And if we consider the doctrinal implications of the Lord's Prayer, it's extremely problematic. We had a question on this just last week on our theology, was it Thursday or maybe Friday? But I answered the question. The Lord's Prayer does not align with by grace through faith and not of works. It just doesn't. The entire context of it does not. And yet, our elites within the theological circles, those who pastor the large churches and who exercise all of that authority, they seem to want to teach the Lord's Prayer and implement it into our theology today, into our doctrine. This is an incoherent position. And yet, you are not supposed to question their teaching. You are not allowed to propose a view that is not aligned with their doctrinal teaching, with their own premises, their own assumptions. And it has really been exacerbated to the point where if you are not walking the exact line, and as I'm sitting here watching our sign flash at me here, I may just have to record this one, but I'll go ahead and speak and I'll upload it for you in a little bit. But if you are not willing to walk the very thin line that they want you to walk, you are absolutely considered a heretic, kicked out of the circles. You're not allowed to have a voice in the debate, in the conversation. And once again, I see this parallel with our political establishment, our political elites. If you point out the fact that they are not being truthful with you, like the Secret Service director, and they're not telling you the whole story, even though they say that you should believe them, or the mainstream media who lies to you again and again, if you do not if you do not show the necessary loyalty to them, you are treated as this radical conspiracy theorist. And then they seek to completely discredit you. This is the same approach that is done by the theological elites. If you dare propose any kind of doctrine or theology that is contrary to what the mainstream accepted view is, you are not allowed to voice your own position. Now, there's a certain window that you're allowed to fit in. There's a little bit of wiggle room of doctrine that you can hold to. And they will allow you, like for example, the Southern Baptist. Let's consider this. The Southern Baptist will allow you to have a seat at the table if you are a Calvinist. You can be a 5-point Calvinist and you're allowed to hold positions in the associations. You can speak at their events. On the other hand, you can also not be a 5-point Calvinist. Maybe they would say a 2-point Calvinist. But as long as you're not Arminian, believing you can lose your salvation, then you can also have a seat at the table and you can do these things and you can engage in the events and doings. You could even be a loosely Acts 2 dispensationalist in the Southern Baptist Convention, but you would still have to say the teachings of Jesus are all to be directly applied to us today, so it's a very loose Acts 2 position. But what's amazing is the Calvinist and the Acts 2 loosely dispensationalist do not have a whole lot of theology in common when it comes to the character of God, the nature of God. And yet, those two views are still acceptable, and you're allowed to fit into that cookie jar, right? If you dare hold a position, though, that goes against their core principles, for example, the one thing that the Calvinist and the loose Acts 2 dispensationalist are going to have in common is the teachings of Jesus. And they will both hold to the position, they will both agree that the Sermon on the Mount is about us, it's to be applied to us, it's for us. That is going to be what they have in common. There's some core principles that you have to have. If you are someone who is not, and as I'm just switching all my things off here because I'm going to have to just upload this later. If you're someone who is not, though, if you hold to a position of mid-Acts dispensationalism that Jesus, according to Romans 15:8, was a minister to the circumcision, fulfilling the promises made to the fathers, and if you hold that Peter had a ministry to the Jewish people where Paul is our apostle, he was the one that received the ministry of the mystery dispensation of God. If you hold that view, you are not allowed to have a seat at that table because you fall just outside the accepted bandwidth that theology allows. And they want you to feel like you can't ask those kind of questions, that those are unacceptable. I want to encourage you. I hope that I have people in my Bible study who are inquiring in their nature, that they want to ask questions, and they're not afraid to ask questions that would be considered unacceptable in a church. A Southern Baptist church, if you dare ask the question, can you lose your salvation? I don't hold that you can, all right? But I am okay with people asking that question. That is an unacceptable question to ask in a Southern Baptist church. It's just not a doctrine that they hold to. Or if you try to ask the question, hey, is there a place when baptism was absolutely required for forgiveness of sins? They'll say, no, absolutely not. You cannot ask that question, when in reality, there's some very specific passages in Scripture, whether you're considering John the Baptist or Peter in Acts chapter 2. It goes on, where baptism is treated as an essential component and necessary for the groups that we're being preached to. So I'll probably cut this one short today. We're at about an hour, or we're about at half an hour today. So, because I don't have questions for you, these are just my thoughts, and I like to always engage with you. But I'm going to close with you on this matter. So, if nothing else, just understand, you have a right to ask questions. If you are going to a church and you are listening to a pastor preach, and he is not giving you the opportunity to ask questions, whether it's in Sunday school or at least coming up to him afterwards or scheduling a time, that is a problem, okay? You should not just take the word of our political elites, our agencies. Neither should you just take the words of our theological elites. You can do your own homework. Don't feel like you should be banned from having your own opinion and asking and inquiring of these important matters. Because as it stands today, a lot of our pastors, our commentators, the theologians writing on these important matters, they're holding to some very contradicting doctrine, and it's harming our faith. I think a lot of people are looking at this matter of how the Bible's being taught, and they see the contradictions, and they see that preachers are avoiding key passages of the Bible, because if they preached on those key passages in the Bible, it would make their theology fall apart. And I hope that they can find ministries, hopefully like ours, and others that actually teach the whole Bible and don't hide from those issues, because they will actually be able to understand that the Word of God is true, and there is a way to understand it in its context that does not have inconsistencies, and the contradictions that may appear to exist are actually misunderstandings on our behalf, but not misunderstandings as they teach it. They'll just say, well, the author didn't actually mean that. That's not really what Peter meant. That's not really what Jesus meant. What they were talking about is, and then they go off and they start making stuff up. No, what I'm talking about is understanding its context, as in this matter of the law, the Ten Commandments, the baptism, confession of sins, you name it. That was Israel things meant for them. The body of Christ being a new thing in a dispensation that was a mystery age, that was not known but is now revealed. And if we can discern between those, then we will create I hate to use the word coalition because it's used by groups that I don't like, but we will create a new era, a new phase of churches, Bible students that actually can teach the Bible, actually can understand the Bible, and will not feel like they are at the mercy of those elites that write all of the commentaries and teach in the seminaries, and will be better for it. So start asking questions. Ask yourself questions as well. Question some of your own assumptions. That's one of the things that Dr. White talks about a lot. So question your own assumptions, but question the teachings that you're taught by the pastors, okay? Do not feel like you are somehow drifting into unorthodoxy or being heretical just because you don't take their word for it. I think that that's been a big mistake. I think we've taken a lot of pastors' words for it without actually confirming it within the Word of God. So just like you don't take everything that the mainstream media or the government agencies, the Secret Service, politicians tell you, the truth be told, you kind of have to treat preachers the same way, all right? You got to treat theologians the same way. You cannot just assume that they're telling you the facts, and they're not necessarily being intentionally misleading, but that doesn't mean that they're not wrong. And sometimes maybe they're misleading as well. So with that, I do apologize for the show today. I wish that we could have gone live. It seems like the satellites are not aligned quite well for us. I'll talk to Elon Musk. Maybe he can get that fixed for us. But until next time, this has been Shields and Arrows, where we defend the faith, the family, and the fellowship. We will be back here tomorrow. We're going to talk about more matters. Hopefully our internet's going to work good for us. But I appreciate you. Be on the lookout for our new series content being uploaded, whether that is Misapplied, whether it's the last days. Eventually, once we get done with VBS this month of July, I'm going to get back to teaching Philippians on Wednesday night. So we'll have all sorts of good Bible content for you. Thank you all so much. We'll see you later.